promises for him is this learning and growing and practicing of being family, because he's invited us into his family ultimately. And he's invited us to begin figuring out in this life how to be family, not only with him, but with one another. And so much of our faith, I find, is outworked in our closest relationships, in the ways that we learn and grow and meet with God. And our passages today, both Amos, which we didn't read, and Luke, speak of the importance of relationship with those ones closest to us, with our family and with the community around us, and for us today, perhaps the family of God around us here at Hills. And in Amos, briefly, God speaks and he addresses Israel. He addresses things, ways that they are treating one another, that is breaking his laws, but more than breaking rules, it's treating one another in a way that is bringing harm. And he addresses things like trampling the needy, bringing ruin to the poor of the land. He addresses things like instead of resting and celebrating Sabbaths and acknowledging God, they're eager to just earn more money, get more money, being dishonest in trade and business, and being deceitful, and taking advantage of one another when they're impoverished or needy. And he addresses these ways. All of the ways that he addresses is about people trying to gain for themselves, people thinking of themselves and trying to gain for themselves. And that always has a cost on the people closest to them. And it does not bring life or love or blessing. And it mostly brings harm. And so God addresses these things because he has given Israel rules and ways of functioning together that practice being family with God, that practice being life-giving towards one another. And when people break his laws, it's not just about being right or wrong. It's about that to break his laws means to start mistreating one another, to start thinking of myself and serving myself rather than serving God and so serving the family around me. And the enemy always jumps in on that, doesn't he? As soon as we think that we're doing something in our own understanding or for our own motives, we'll probably end up getting kind of tricked into some kind of destructive behavior, something that's not of God. So Jesus continues this because God is preparing Israel for the coming of Jesus and for the salvation to every nation and tribe. And Jesus comes and he has in Luke 16 this story about an owner of property and a manager. And now both of them, actually, commentators say, both of them were being dishonest. The very fact that the rich man was being quite savvy and charging probably extra interest and taking advantage of people in his dealings, he was hoarding wealth. He was mistreating people, and his manager just happened to be doing the same thing. They were both serving themselves. And so when he addresses his manager says, oh, well, perhaps if I stop charging the extra interest that you're charging the people, I can keep my job and kind of keep everyone happy. So he was a bit savvy in how he handled that. And there's a commendation not for his faithfulness, because both these characters in the story are mistreating people, but for his wisdom. There's something about the way that we treat each other in our there's a difference in this story between wisdom and faithfulness. And in our effort, in our desire to be faithful to God and to practice being family, we need wisdom. But even Jesus says, even the people who don't know God, even the people in the world around us who are completely living for themselves, they may have wisdom. They may have the savvy to make circumstances work for themselves, to kind of find a knowledge and ways of functioning that make the most of where they're at or what they've got in their hand. And that's not a wrong thing in itself, but to have wisdom and faithfulness means that we are using that wisdom to serve God. We are using what's in our hand and the possessions we have, the money we have, the situation we have, rather than using it to serve ourselves. We're serving God, and so faithful in how we treat the people around us and how we treat our family. And this is quite poignant to our kind of talk on courage and our theme of courage, because if any of us, I probably asked any of us, I certainly know myself, families and the people we walk with most closely in church family or in our own families, we get to see the good, the bad, the ugly, right? It is where mostly our sin comes up. It is where mostly we get to affect one another. We are walking so closely in life that as beautiful and broken human beings, we both get opportunities to bless one another, to be there for one another, to serve one another, but we also inadvertently hurt one another and are hurt by one another. And there's courage required in our closest relationships in order to journey with Jesus, in order to journey in the way that Jesus talks about in this passage, in order to be faithful with a little, in order to be faithful with what is in our hand, with the people that are entrusted to us, with the money and the possessions in our life that are entrusted to us, with how we use them and share them, and how we serve one another with what we have. In order to be faithful with a little, and so be faithful and learn how to be faithful with much more, it requires great, great courage in the everyday relationships. And I love what I was working with a couple in Nelson years ago, and they said, and the husband said he had not realized his sin, and he had not seen his sin until he got married, until he saw how the natural brokennesses in him affected his wife. And then he recognized more of what was in him. He recognized what God was bringing up in him. And for love, he wanted to change. And I witnessed to that myself. It's not until I'm in the closest relationships and doing life vulnerably with the people in my home and with the friends and family that I work, and do life with regularly, that I recognize in me things that are coming up, like familiar ways that I function in, or ways that I let people down, ways that I don't even know how to be there for someone, or that I misunderstand people or quickly judge or do something that is not life-giving. And when that comes up in me, because of the love I have for the people around me, I want to change. And isn't that a wonderful motivation for journeying with Jesus? That in our closest relationships, we have these people with us for only a certain amount of time. And it is in the subtle and the quiet and the everyday, the little things sometimes, that God is bringing to light ways in which he's inviting us to learn, to grow. And courage requires that like we talked about last week, that trusting, that to kind of figure out how to be present and honest, to be willing to learn and keep on journeying. And it's this, that in all of these everyday relational ways, we can either choose to have courage and to continue to bring our hearts to God, to say, Lord, even though there's things in life, there's reactions I'm having, there's ways I'm misunderstanding, there's ways that I'm not able to be a better parent or whatever it is, there's these ways and they're beyond me, but I trust you. I trust you, God, and I want to continue nurturing that trust between you and I. And I want to continue to figure out how to nurture the trust in this relationship. And what does that look like? And there's ways that we open up our hearts to God. And even when it's hard, even when we're feeling shame or we're wanting to hide or we're feeling afraid or we're just feeling like, well, I've just got to push through and I've just got to get this thing together and use my own strength or whatever it is. But rather than reacting in our own human ways, we actually pause and we allow our hearts to be present with God first, to come honestly to him and help him to make us able, through his word, through prayer, through sometimes professional counsel or wise friends, that he makes us able to then show up for that person that we're struggling with or the part of the relationship we're struggling with, and to be honest and to figure out what does honesty and love look like here. What does nurturing connection and nurturing trust look like here? And to be willing to learn and grow. That is courage. And that is very courageous when psychologists tell us that, from our formation, from our upbringing, there are certain buttons that are pushed in us through almost everyday things that can cause us to feel so terrified. And they might be really simple things in a relationship or really simple things in a situation in our life or in our home or in our church family as we do life together. And it's facing the terrifying, the weird stuff that's coming up from the depth of us that we don't understand. And it's facing that with courage. And that's what Jesus calls us to walk with wisdom and faithfulness. In these passages, not to view, he talks about dishonest wealth. And that is this looking at money, kind of viewing money as unrighteous. It's not the thing that's going to save you. It's not the thing that you need to be running after. It's Jesus. And Jesus has the eternal home ahead of us, where we will all regather and continue in an incredible walk and adventure. And it's and dishonest wealth, any wealth, if we can figure out how to be faithful with that. So how to be wise, how to use our minds and our skills and be savvy in life, but in a way that is faithful to the people around us, faithful to God. So in order to use our possessions for God, for his glory, and for the welfare of his family around us. If we can figure out that, then that is serving God, and that will bring a witness to the community around us. That will bring a witness to the people around us who are serving themselves and finding it incredibly destructive, incredibly unsatisfying. Finding that serving themselves does not bring the home or the security or their heart's desire. And so just to finish and to kind of tie all that up, there's something that Jesus shows us in his life. You know, he shows us the Father. He invites us and reveals to us his family, the way that the Trinity, Father, Son, and Holy Spirit, functions as the perfect family with that self-giving love, submitting to one another in their functioning and serving one another. And there's a way that he gives us the Holy Spirit, and he not only kind of shows us and gives to us, but he actually makes us family in his death, in his resurrection, in his ascension, conquering sin and death and bringing humanity, bringing us home to God in his ascension. And he makes us family. It says here, you know, we're adopted into the family of God. The Holy Spirit lives within us and works within us to continue to give us everything we need to figure out the messy journey of being family. And as we practice this, as we invite Jesus into the everyday, into our closest relationships, and say, Lord, I'm having a tough time, or I don't know how to communicate, I'm misunderstanding, or I'm being hurt, or I need to forgive, or whatever it is. As we invite him to be Lord, as we acknowledge who he is and invite him to help us in those everyday things in our closest relationships and how we journey together here, then the witness of God, the glory of God, is shown through these things. And the faithfulness of what we tend to in the little is multiplied. And we find that we're made capable of reaching out into the lives of others and of even doing the little things and showing forth God in the little things towards others who are longing for that home, for that family, to experience being found by God and being treated by other humans in a deeply good way. And so let us be encouraged in our lives this week, just as we go through the everyday, to take note of what God's inviting us to take note of in ourselves and in our relationships, and to know that it's no small thing that actually he brings glory to himself. He's given us precious gifts around us, and let's live life to the full in courageous ways.